welcome back to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast, the podcast where we like to talk about the things we like to do when we're not on the clock working. Tonight, we are continuing with our spooky season movie series, I guess you want to call it. We did It, the 2017 It's last episode, and tonight we are going to discuss, for my money, one of the most terrifying movies I've ever seen. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's how I feel. I still feel that way about it today. The original Paranormal Activity.
Yes.
Yes.
My name's Derek, and
oh man,
I remember being scared for a really, really long time after the first time I saw this movie. Like it messed with me for probably years, I would think. What about you guys?
Chris, go ahead.
Well, I'm Chris, and I would say, first of all, I have to admit that, was it 2 nights ago when I watched this movie? It was the first time I saw it. And I will say this was one of like the best marketed movies back in like, what year was this? Like 2009?
2009, yeah.
9, yeah. So this is like our high school days. And I think this movie was made by marketing. If you remember the ads, they were all like reaction shots of like people in the theaters.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like people like jumping out of their seats and like the popcorn flying and stuff.
It worked really well too.
Yeah, and I want to talk about kind of why it works, but I would say like if I had to give it a rating on like a fear scale.
Okay.
No. I'm not giving it an overall rating. I'm just saying on like the fear scale. Yeah. For me, it was probably like a 6. So I don't think it was terrifying, but I think it definitely had some very basic but like spooky effects to it, and I think the way in which they went about it was good. So we could definitely dive into that. But
yeah, I think in 2000 with 2009 eyes, I'd probably rate it higher on the fear scale. I don't know if that's just because I was younger or it was the first time going through it, but Paranormal Activity in 2024, probably sits around a 6 for me.
Yeah, and it's a little higher for me. I saw this movie in the theater with a group of people actually in 2009 when this came out. So back then, we went as a group. We saw the movie. We were all terrified. We had like a group sleepover at my buddy's house. Not because we were scared, just because that was kind of the plan anyway. But it definitely, no, it gave us more incentive to stick together. Funny enough, I tell this whenever I think of this movie, I think of my one buddy who was a part of the group we saw the movie with. He decided he was so scared that he got up in the middle of the night and left the house we were at and then walked to his house because he lived down the street to go back to his house. I don't know. I would have wanted to be with my friends, and I'm not like getting up in the middle of the night and like going outside in the pitch black. I don't know.
Yeah. Being alone.
Yeah.
Like splitting up from the group. That's a horror movie thing, dude. Like you're on the list after that.
But I do guess that maybe since this movie takes place in a house, pretty much the entirety of the movie, that maybe being outside felt safe. That's really the only conclusion I can draw based off that.
That makes absolutely no sense, but okay.
Hey, outside, this movie actually makes outside feel a lot safer than being inside your home. So
okay.
So as with it, as we did with it, I'm going to do.
That's such an awkward title to try to make sure it's a title.
As we did with It 2017, I'm going to go through some facts about this movie before we really dive into the discussion here. So Paranormal Activity released in 2009. It actually released in 2007 to like some like indie movie film festivals. I think that's where all those reaction shots came from when they were marketing the movie. It released in theaters in 2009 after it was acquired by Paramount. They actually changed the movie and then re-released it, the ending specifically. But anyway, IMDb score for this movie, 6.3 out of 260,000 plus votes. That's For a horror movie, that's pretty good. And I said horror movie, I got to stick to scary movie. For a scary movie, that's pretty good actually. Rotten Tomatoes, the critics loved this movie, 83%. That's pretty high for a movie like this for critics. The audience, 57%. That seems very low. I don't know why, but I just feel like I was thinking more of like at least a 75 plus for the audience. I feel like a lot of people like this.
Yeah, maybe that is a function of time. I wonder if like you time boxed that to the first like 5 years or 4 years. I wonder if it would be any higher.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Maybe it's the found footage aspect of it. But anyway, it's directed by Oren Peli. This was his first movie. Starring Micah Sloat and Katie Featherston, who played themselves in this movie, which really helped.
What does Oren Peli do?
Chernobyl Diaries.
Another found footage movie.
Yeah, that's literally what he does.
Yeah,
as far
you said
as
it like I should have known the name, and I'm not good at watching movies, so I asked.
That's all
it's
good.
Literally, it's basically just like another version of Paranormal Activity, and
Okay.
I think he does some of the other sequels. I don't think he does all of them. Could be wrong.
Well, there's a lot of at this point. There's like I feel like there's like 5 or 6 sequels at least.
Yeah, but I don't know if he's attached to all of them.
He's I don't think he's attached to any. At least as a director, I don't think he's attached to any of them. Maybe producer, but yeah, he only has 4 movies as a director. Yeah, sorry, he had.
Okay,
yeah,
so I probably wouldn't know him.
Yeah, so he had Paranormal Activity, and then you said Chernobyl, and then there's a movie called Area 51 that he did. But yeah, this was the only Paranormal Activity movie he directed, so he got things started with a bang. Some fun facts here. So the filming of this movie took only 10 days to complete. It's crazy. Makes sense, though. This movie is shot in one location using one camera.
And there's 3 actors.
There's 3 Well, yeah, 3. Yeah, you have what? The main 2, you have the psychic, and then the one friend that comes over. Yeah, the female friend that comes over.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about her. Yes, very, very important character.
major character.
It has a name.
Doesn't even have an. I don't even know if she has a name in the movie.
I'm pretty sure she does.
She probably does. Forgettable. The actors weren't given scripts like traditional scripts for this movie. They were just given guidelines on how to behave and like what to talk about in their scenes. So I'm assuming a lot of this was improvised. Which, if that's the case, credit to them. They did a great job. Steven Spielberg. There's two things in here about Steven Spielberg, actually. He had to stop watching this film halfway through on a home screen because he was genuinely spooked by the experience. And then he had to finish it the next day in broad daylight. He loved the movie.
I could believe that.
Me and Steven have a lot in common. Katie and Micah, who are the main stars of the movie, they were only paid $500 for their performances.
What was the second thing about Spielberg? You said there were 2 things about Spielberg?
Well, it's coming. It's coming. Coming.
This movie
unorthodox. It's coming.
This movie was the inspiration for Jaws. That's the
Spielberg got a time machine, saw this movie in the future, went back and made Jaws. Yeah, so Katie and Micah were only paid $500 each for their performances in this movie. That was obviously later negotiated because of the success of the movie. Speaking of the film's success, this film went on to make $193 million worldwide with a budget of $15,000, making it the second most profitable scary movie behind the Blair Witch Project, which is another found footage movie kind of set. I mean, Blair Witch Project basically walked so this movie could run. I mean, yeah, that was really the first really successful found footage scary movie. And then, helped spawn this. Yeah, and then Paramount acquired the movie, like I mentioned earlier. They modified some things, including the ending, which cost about $200,000. I don't know. That's the number I saw. Not sure where that money went. Not sure where the money went, but
wait.
It wasn't just the ending. They changed other things.
It's got to be marketing.
Probably, yeah. I would say mostly marketing, and then maybe some of like the special effects that take place in the ending.
I don't even know if there's like early effects, but okay.
Guy getting thrown into a camera. I don't know.
Yeah. So what we'll talk about it when we get there, because I did not see that version.
So here's the Spielberg. So here's the second Spielberg fact. He was actually one of the people who convinced Oren to change the ending. He was not a fan of the original ending. I did like a little bit of research on what the original ending was. It sounds like it was just it basically the ending that we got in the theatrical release allowed the story to continue. And in the original ending, it was basically like they're both dead and it can't continue. So if they were going to make a sequel, it'd have to be like a new original story. And the final one I have here is that the entire film was shot in Oren Peli's home, and it was filmed using a home video camera that he had.
Oh, I was actually going to ask that. I'm like, considering how low budget this was, I wonder whose house they used. I didn't know that.
The director was like, I'll do it. And listen, if I were him, I would not be able to sleep in that house ever again. He's probably got a family in that house. I don't know Oren Peli's life, but yeah, no, I'm not staying in that house.
All right. So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys is, do you think, like specifically talking about the house now that we brought it up, do you think that the house made any kind of like difference in terms of how the movie turned out? Or do you think they could have used any kind of house, really? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you think that specific design, the rooms that they used, everything about it, do you think it had anything to do with how, the movie came across in terms of like it being scary or whatnot?
I think the only thing that was I think the biggest strength was the tripod camera in the bedroom and the line of sight down the hallway.
Perfect. Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Other than that, could have been any house anywhere.
I agree. And because it's kind of funny because you watch as you watch the movie, you like literally like I could basically picture the inside of that house, the entire layout, like in my head, just from the movie. But I agree with you. Like, I think that shot with, you have the hallway and that other room, you know what I mean? Like all the way down, like kind of off to your left. And then I think also the way the steps are laid out, the fact that it's like kind of like a landing.
Yeah.
Right. And then the steps kind of come right up, like they're a little bit inside of the camera shot, right past the door, but it's never really well lit.
Nope.
And then, of course, like you have like the bed and everything. But I also think, too, that room was good because there was like the bathroom and everything was off to the side.
Yeah.
So there were like so many like angles and places which like my eyes were focused throughout the whole movie. 99% of it didn't matter because most of it happened in the same spot. But, I just think that's interesting to kind of, dissect.
Yeah. My answer would have been the same as Derek's. The stairs, the way, the particular stairs that this house has, and then that hallway just like added to the tension, and especially the sound design in this movie is amazing. I can still hear like the footsteps and like thudding, and oh man, yeah, it's just it's just so effective. But the best decision they made in this movie was leaving that door open the entire time. Like that was part of the point of the experiment. Like they wanted to capture everything on camera, but like that door, if that door's closed, this is a completely different movie.
Sure.
Like, the thing could open the door and come in. That would be creepy. But the fact that it's open and you just like your eyes are going to that hallway and it's just so dark. It just adds to the tension so much.
But what's kind of funny is there's like really not much that happens down that hallway. Like there are some parts, but I mean, like as much time as I spent like peeking over there, it rarely did it actually lead to anything. But I just thought that was interesting. I mean, I'm guessing it was not really by choice. It was probably more out of just like, oh, this is the cheapest option. I have a house. Let's use this.
Well, I also think like the design, like the long hallway to the left, like you have the stairs immediately in front of the door, and they did the long hallway to the left. And there's so much of this movie that just is just noise, and you can hear footsteps like from a distance getting closer and closer and closer to the room. Like having that hallway right there specifically is just very effective. And I actually think that, especially when they discover the attic, and when they put the powder down in the hallway, like that helped make that part of the house more intriguing to me, at least. Just like, oh, you can hear it maybe coming down from the attic. You can hear it walking down the hallway. Footsteps are getting louder and louder and louder. Same thing with the staircase. You can hear the faint footsteps, and then you can hear the loud thudding footsteps coming up the stairs.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why the steps are important too, because like that's initially where your eyes are drawn, like is kind of like, oh, something's going to be coming up the steps. But I like the fact that it's like, so it's a hardwood surface through the hallway and on the steps. Like that's important. And at the downstairs as well. And then the fact that the steps have like a landing too, like it adds an extra layer of like sound. You know what I mean? Because it's not just like straight, like coming straight up the steps, so to speak. It would, be kind of rounding it. So it almost like draws out the sounds a little bit more. That's a good point too, though. I like how like the that closet where the attic entrance is, like that light being on sort of like unlocks a whole other dimension to the home that you're not like really aware of at first. And then I also think just the fact that like the stairs are the way they are, like you can see from the ground floor up to the second floor, and you can see the bedroom door from there because there's a couple shots of that, and then vice versa, but it's also kind of like when they're upstairs and then they shine the camera light downstairs, it's like it's murky because the railing's in the way too. Like, I don't know, like I felt like that worked well, maybe unintentionally, but if it's just a normal staircase straight up and down, it's like it doesn't have the same effect if you could just shine the light just down to the bottom of the steps versus kind of like seeing through the railing to the downstairs.
Yeah, I have to believe that the director, that Pelly, saw his house and like thought about it. He's not just gonna film the movie at his house without thinking about like, how can I use this to the fullest capability. And yeah, I mean, I feel like he thought like, okay, this house, I can do some really effective scares with the layout of this house. And yeah, the downstairs part, like every time they were shining the light downstairs, I was always like waiting. Like the first time I saw the movie, especially, I was like waiting for something to pop in a corner, or just like he's gonna just keep turning around, and all of a sudden there's gonna be something in the corner or some sort of shadow or something. I just kept thinking it was gonna happen.
Yeah, and then like the ease of access to the outside too, right? Like, how there's a few scenes, or there's like one particular scene where like he finds her outside, like she
on
just
the swing.
Exactly, like just the sliding door. I don't know, like just the whole layout of the house kind of, and maybe it's just like confirmation bias just because I watched it that way, but it's like it feels like a relatable home one, right? How many scary movies have like a entirely unrealistic house, like just either like just some crazy mansion or just something that's like not like anything that the average person lives in. But I think this was, because it was a lived in home, it was very relatable. And I think that is probably what carries over a lot of that fear to like after the movie's done, like our buddy who's running home to his mom.
Yeah. And even in the bedroom particularly, I do wonder if like he had to change the layout of the bedroom at all, or if he put the bed like where the bed is in the movie, or if that's how it usually is when he's just living there. But yeah, that bed, the positioning of the bed, and then just how much space there is between like the edge of the bed to the door, like there's space there, there's just your eyes. It's like the rule of thirds. You have the bed on the right, and then you have the ground and the door right there on the left. Like just there's a lot of room for your imagination to kind of go wild, especially in the scenes where the demon is supposedly in the room with them, like next to the bed.
Yeah, and
I can't even think about that.
Yeah,
I think too, like it fits perfectly in the frame where it's like the door can be on the left, and you can still see the characters when they basically run to the other side of the bed. Like you can still see them, like so, and it creates this like gap, and there's like a ground to cover. And I think that adds to like the tension. I think that's what this movie did the most for me. Is it wasn't so much like a scare per se, but there was so much tension, like what is going to happen or what's coming next kind of thing. And there's a few jump scares, but I don't think as much as the marketing as the trailers made it seem.
Yeah,
back in the day.
Yeah, no, this movie is built on the idea of just building up tension, just that sense of dread, like something's going to happen. It may not be like night number 5 or night number whatever 10, 13, but it's coming. It's coming. You're just waiting for like that particular, like when is the other shoe going to drop? Like this movie does it so effectively. And And like I said before, the sound design in this movie is fantastic. Like I watched this movie on subtitles, so like I can hear it, but also like the subtitle is like loud or like loud thud or like low pounding, or what was the humming, like the low humming or something. Like that was a specific subtitle that every time like the demon was making its presence known, like the low hum came up on the screen. I was like, oh, here we fucking go, it's coming.
So that's another point too. Like I watched it also on subtitles. Everybody else in the house was asleep, so I kind of didn't have the volume like bumping.
Yeah.
So I'd like to sort of rewatch it with like the volume much louder, because to be honest, I couldn't really hear those low hums, but I saw the subtitle say low hum, low hum fades away. And I'm like, oh shit, what's coming?
Oh yeah, it's coming. So that does what the movie does really well. It builds tension. But like the genre, like in regards to scares, like for me, like paranormal scares, like that particular genre of scare is my least favorite. It's the most effective to me. I don't know if that's
Ghosts
for you guys.
Aliens.
Okay. Chris, what about you? Are you get scared easily by paranormal stuff, or are you more like,
well, again, I think it's not so much like jump scares as much as it's like just the thought of you usually can't see what it is that's causing, whatever it is antagonizing. And, it's up to the movie to sort of give you little cues here and there, whether it's sound cues or, just slight movement in the door, right? Obviously you catch like a shadow moving past the door with the right lighting, the gimmick of the baby powder. I thought that wasn't that great. I thought that was a little corny, but I mean, I can appreciate that they're like trying to add everything they can in without explicitly showing, whatever this, entity is. So I think in that regard, like the paranormal stuff it's unsettling, but I don't think it lends its hand to like jump scares. I think when the jump scares happen, they're fairly predictable, but this movie did a good job, in my opinion, with just the atmosphere created. And I wanted to ask you guys, we can talk about kind of like the found footage genre or aspect of it. Did you find that effective or not? In terms of, we're talking about the scare factor here. So
I think it did. This was probably the first found footage movie I'd ever seen. So I thought it was pretty effective. I think that the most effective part of it, again, was the bedroom camera, which I mean, I understand like most of the movie's a bedroom camera. I get it. But I think it's the fact that humans have to sleep and like they're filming themselves sleeping. Like they're vulnerable for 8 hours or whatever it is. And like, what's going to happen at night? And I think that vulnerability, the fact that they're sleeping like on the right side of the screen, the whole left side of the screen is just like some shit's going down. I think that's the part that makes it that scary.
Chris, what was the question again?
I was just asking kind of like what you thought about the found footage aspect of this movie. Did it work? Did it not work? Or, what were your thoughts?
Oh, it definitely worked. This movie is way less scary if it's not a found footage movie. It's just like the fact that it just feels incredibly grounded. Like a film can't feel more grounded than this because it's just so authentic and real. This movie is just way more effective as a found footage movie. Blair Witch was super effective as a found footage movie, and a lot of that actually is because I think the marketing for this movie it didn't say that this was not real. You know what I mean? Like they never came out and said like, oh, this is fiction. Like they marketed this as like these are real events. Like these people are real, and like the actors are playing themselves. Like these aren't like famous actors or anything. Like they're just normal people playing that are starring in this movie. Really helps sell like the realism aspect. Like you feel like you're watching like a documentary almost. Like these are real events. That's how Blair Witch felt too. And back then, I mean, 2009 we had access to the internet, but like when Blair Witch came out in '99, like they had no internet. Like they couldn't like look up like if this movie is was this movie fake or what. Like people just had to assume that it was real, and I think that part of it played really well into this movie as well. Just with the marketing, and then just like being in the theater, experiencing it, and even watching it now, you're like, this feels real.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I think the time that this movie came out, like the year I'm talking about, like allows it to shine, because it's like the camera is like good but still janky enough where it's like, you know, not everything's crystal clear, and you know there's certain things you can't see that well in the background, and the lighting doesn't like, you know, like there's nothing like perfect about the image, which is you know, the idea of the found footage thing. I also think too, like, you know, I don't love when found footage movies are too handheld, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, if you remember like Cloverfield, there's like a lot of just like
shaky cam.
Like, it's just like it gets a little, aside from just the movie, it kind of makes you nauseous,
like disorienting.
Right? Yeah, I don't think this did that too much. Now, granted, they're really moving in a small space, so there's not a whole lot to do there, but it was based on him kind of setting up the camera on a tripod or in different spots. So I felt like that was kind of nice, as you didn't have to deal with like that. I think that's like a cheap kind of effect, in my opinion, like a gimmick. But I do like the fact with the found footage stuff that it's like, it's like a low FOV where it's like when they're turning, like when he's in the attic, right? And he looks to one side of the attic.
Yeah.
And then he's looking like, you know what I mean?
That was
just
so effective.
Yeah, you can't help but like, and then you're also like looking in the, like far down the attic, and you're like, wait, I can't quite see what's back there. What is that? So like, it's just perfect. I think if you try to do it nowadays, like, you know, like in 4K, like the cameras would just be like too good. You know, the FOV would be like too wide and wouldn't have the same effect. No, I think really like 2009-ish, like that, those times, like it kind of lends itself to this genre. I just don't think it's really a genre that can work well too much anymore. It's also been like overdone, but this is probably I'm trying to think. I mean, I've seen, since this came out, a ton of found footage movies. Blair Witch, a little bit more shaky cam, kind of like, and then also like the turning the camera on her like on themselves.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that crap kind of sucks. I don't like that much. They just like they get like the under the double chin.
Yeah, you get the see the nostrils, like, oh, they got some boogers up there,
and they're just like, yeah. Like that kind of gets played out. So I like that this movie didn't do that, but it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, when the scares are going down, the camera is stationary for the most part, except like when they're going to like inspect the attic. And then during the daytime, obviously, like Micah always has this camera on, and he's just recording everything. So yeah, I mean, the lack of shaky cam, like I'm also trying to like put myself in these people's shoes. Like, you're in this situation, you're holding the camera, you're shaking, like you're not going to shake. If it was me, I'd be like Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump, like just shaking all over the place.
It's also like it didn't do that. Like I'm not a fan of this effect where, like, you know, when they drop the camera.
Oh yeah.
And then you're just like seeing like stuff going, like they're running or someone's chasing. Like I don't know. I think this was simple enough that it just worked really well.
Yeah, they didn't like overdo it.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. And if you start to watch some of the subsequent Paranormal Activities, I think it starts to kind of lose its appeal when like there's too many cameras.
Yeah.
You know, then they're tapping into like the home security camera. So there's not like, you know, camera one, camera two. Like, I think that gets a little annoying.
They got to evolve though. Like, you know, how you got to evolve the genre in some way.
Yeah.
They do some really cool
evolution.
stuff. Yeah, I said they do some really cool stuff in the sequels. I don't know if you remember the one. I forget if it's 2 or 3, but they put the camera on like a fan or something, like on a ceiling fan.
That's the one I was going to bring up. Yeah, it's 3, and they put it on like an oscillating fan. They just like cut the head off the fan, slap the camera on there, and that's like the most effective shot in the entire series, I think.
Yeah, it probably is. Go ahead,
They
Chris.
also did, was it like the Xbox Kinect camera or something? Where like
maybe
it was dark, but then all the lasers were shooting off of it.
Oh,
so like the wall was like a grid of lasers, kind of like the sensors would be for like a Kinect or something like that. and then like you would see like movement in the lasers.
That
it was
sounds
like
familiar.
It was corny, but it was a cool concept. Just
Interesting.
playing off of different kinds of cameras. I think that was like kind of interesting. But yeah, I think this is one of those franchises where like it starts out well and then like they're trying to reinvent the wheel. And I don't know. I think it starts to fall off eventually.
Yeah, I mean, this movie, this was bound to get, become a franchise, and it's become a huge franchise. I forget when the last one came out. It wasn't too long ago. But there's been like 5 or 6 of these movies. I think there's definitely 4. And
Isn't
I'm
it
pretty
like
sure
Next of Kin or something? Isn't that the
something
last?
like that. They were getting wild with it.
2021.
Huh. I've seen 1, 2, and 3. I don't think I saw 4, or if I did, I don't remember it at all. And I think that's it.
Yeah, I can't remember. I know I've seen 2, maybe 3, and I think that's kind of where I stopped. But then there was like a bunch of. It starts to get kind of fuzzy. There was like so many found footage movies that were coming out that it's like, and then they started doing like the webcam kind of like, I think it was like Unfriended or something.
Yeah. I saw that.
People were getting like hacked up while they're on their webcams. Like it's just like
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I just can't, I've heard, I haven't seen it, but I did hear about that movie. I just can't see that movie I can't see that particular, I can't see that particular style being scary or as scary.
It's trash because it's literally just like the bright light of the laptop, just their face is like so bright and blue in the image, and it's just like it's exactly how it was in like 2010 when we would like video chat one another. It's just like you're in a dark room and there's just a huge bright light on you on a webcam, and you look like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only thing scary about that idea is who's next.
Yeah.
And that's it.
True.
Yeah, because it's just like a grid of the webcams. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like this was pre-COVID though. Pre-team meetings.
Used to it.
Yeah, I don't know. If you could see like behind them, maybe. Like if it wasn't just like their face in the camera, if you could like see their background too, like they could be like, "Oh my God, there's something behind you."
Yeah,
maybe they do that. I have no idea. Okay,
but it's like that only can hold its weight for so long.
Yeah, but getting back to Paranormal Activity, like for me, and then this is going back to how I feel about paranormal stuff in general, but this movie just like ruined the feeling that you feel safe in your own home for me. Like this was the first real like, and I'm sure I'd seen some paranormal stuff before this movie, but this was the one that really like brought it out of me. I was like, I mean, this movie had a stranglehold on me for definitely a few days. It might have gone on longer than that, and then seeing the sequels didn't help. But just like your home's supposed to be your safe spot, you're supposed to feel it's like your sanctuary. It's home, and then when something supernatural invades it and likes to come out when you're at your most vulnerable, sleeping. There's just something about that just gets under my skin and just makes me not want to sleep and not want to put the lights and not turn the lights off. And yeah, that's the barometer for an effective horror movie. Like if you can do that, if you can not make me, if you can affect my sleep schedule, then you've done your job.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why aliens and ghosts specifically affect me. Because like, I don't know. If there's a dude in here with a knife that kills me, I'm like, I mean, that sucks, man. But like aliens and ghosts, they're just like in your house. They don't care. They'll just like beam themselves in there or be here for centuries or something. Like they're just here.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
You can't fucking see them. You can't fucking
I think that's it, is that you like some of these villains you see in scary movies, right? You're always thinking like, how could I escape this, or how could I fight this villain, whatever it might be. But like in these situations, it's like you really can't fight it like physically. And then what they did in this movie is instead of making it like the classic haunted house, it was like the haunted person, right? Because it's attached to the girl, and not so much the house. Yeah. And you find out a little bit more as the movies go on about the specific entity. But I think that's really what it is. At the end of the day, it's like, the bump in the night kind of thing. And then also like you can't see. So
it's just, yeah. And I mean, and you're using your imagination to like, you hear the footsteps coming, like it's in the room with them, it's like at the door, like in the opening of the door, it's like next to Katie, like growling or like whispering in her ear. Like, I don't know. And Chris, you mentioned you thought the powder scene was kind of corny. And like, for me, like that actually helped me try to like, it made me want to visualize this thing. Like, what does this thing look like? Because the footsteps are like kind of like bird-like, I guess. Like there's like 3 toes or whatever you want to call them.
Okay.
Like there weren't like hooves, like some, I don't know, like sometimes when I think of like
hooves.
a demon, I think of like hooves. But this thing had like, it seemed like it had like bird-like legs, possibly. I don't know. Like just the 3 little things just like that. But go ahead.
For some reason, I'm remembering that maybe that was one of the pictures in the book that they were flipping through, but they didn't like linger on the shot or anything. But I cannot find an ounce of evidence to support that online.
Like it could be. I mean, I'm curious to see if like there is a picture out there of the design of this, of what it's supposed to look like. But I also don't want there to be one because it just leaves it more to your imagination. Like it's whatever you want it to be.
The big chicken from Family Guy.
It could be. Could be the big chicken. Could be Big Bird.
Big Bird. That's all. I tend to think it's Big Bird.
Although I don't know if Big Bird's going to be growling like this thing growls. That thing.
You never know.
I think it was growling. So go ahead.
I wanted to ask something else too.
Yeah.
In terms of like kind of us talking about what worked and what maybe didn't, what did you guys think about like the time lapse concept or just the use of time, like day 3, day 4, and then obviously the actual like, time ticking on the screen? Like, did that add anything to it for you or?
For me, I think it did. And I didn't realize it until you asked the question, but I think it's the fact that, the witching hour or whatever, like everyone thinks is 3 a.m., right? And like a lot of these nights, things are happening at 3 something a.m. But I think earlier on in the movie, like there's some activity at 1:30 and then it dies down. I think that might have been when she got up from bed or something at 1:30 and just stared at him for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then as the thing gets more and more active, as this thing gets more and more aggressive, the length of time that it is active for grows. And it even is active while they're awake and like reacting to it.
Yeah.
And I think seeing that progression of like, there's a blip at 1:30, then like, maybe 15 minutes at 3 o'clock. And then at the end turning into like, it's banging on their door, like screaming at them. They're awake in their bed, just like terrified at the door. Like that's such a ramp up in the movie.
I agree with that. And I also think too, specifically like when it says the day and number, day 2, day 3, whatever, I think that's kind of, it plays in your psyche too, because you start to associate that with, again, as each day passes, right? Like it intensifies. And so you're like, okay, like there was some banging in day 2. Now it says day 3. Like, so like, how's it going to like, kind of like outdo itself this time? And like when? And then it's also creepy too, to see like when she's staring at him for like 2 hours, like that's a little unsettling, but it also just kind of, I think it just adds more to that vulnerability, right? Where there's periods where it's like nothing is happening, even when you think it might. And then
Exactly.
it's always that like, when will it show?
Yeah,
exactly. And I think, Ryan, that's probably something that affects you a little bit. Cause like, day 1, day 2, day 3, right? Like one of them, something could be fine. And then the next night, maybe there's a little thump.
Yeah.
And the next night you're fine. You think, all right, that was just a thump yesterday. No, 20 days later, you're getting dragged down the stairs. So however you're sleeping now, dude, another 3 more weeks. We'll see how it is.
That actually sounds like the Eagles season, by the way.
And thank you for listening to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast.
We're coming off a win yesterday. Let's not get negative here.
You're like 3 weeks later, you're getting dragged down the stairs.
No, it's gonna be Nick Sirianni out of the NovaCare complex.
They're gonna say down the rocky stairs
or down there. I mean, that too. He probably would love that. Yeah, the times of the time, and you mentioned the witching hour. Derek, this movie really made me like specifically afraid of like between the hours like 2:30 and 4:30 in the morning. I'm just like, okay, I'm pretty safe before then. It's between those hours that things could happen. And then things change this movie for me when it's the middle of the day, and then it just breaks the picture of them on the wall. It like shatters the part that Micah's face is on. It just cracks the picture frame there. And that's kind of when things change this movie for me. It's like, oh, we're not even safe in the daylight now. Like this thing doesn't care what time of day it is. It's coming out. It's making its presence known. That just goes to, it just helped enhance the scare, I guess. Just like, it's not just the nighttime to be afraid of it, to be afraid of just like, this thing is just there with you at all times, no matter what time of day it is.
Yeah, I think then that's like ultimately kind of how I feel about this movie. It doesn't do any one thing exceptionally well or scary, but it's a lot of little, very kind of like monotonous, ordinary, typical day things that we all obviously go through. And I think that's what adds up to making it effective. I'm trying to think. Like, was there a real jump scare in the movie at any point?
The ending for me got me really good. And then when
So which ending did you see?
Oh man, did you not see the same ending as us?
Derek, you have to go first.
I said that earlier.
You have to go first.
I had the alternate Paramount ending. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, new alternate ending. Spoiler. Wikipedia says, after killing Micah off screen, Katie comes back upstairs alone, like in the original ending. All right. She closes and locks the bedroom door and approaches the camera and promptly slits her own throat before collapsing dead. The scene then fades to black.
Okay.
That's not what I saw.
That is not what we saw. No. That kind of sounds like sort of like the original ending that premiered at like the film festivals. That ending apparently had her come up like with a knife. As you said, she slits her throat, but she like paces around, and then like the cops come and everything, and they find her and they shoot her because she like is a demon. She tries to react to them. Yeah. So this is
the original ending that I saw in 2009.
She's doing demon shit, and so they shoot her. That's a third ending. That's pretty crazy. No, the ending we got, Chris, I'm assuming it's the same ending,
which is the one I saw in 2009 that I still remember.
Yes. She gets possessed, watches over Micah for like 2 hours, goes downstairs, shrieks, which by the way, that scream like Micah was so good. Yeah. Like that was fucking terrifying. He runs down there and there's like noises and
then like
you can hear him. Yeah, you can hear him drop on the floor basically. You just assume that he's dead at that point. And then this is probably the scariest part of the movie. This whole sequence is the scariest part of the movie for me. Maybe it's one or two. Is the slow walk up the stairs. It's loud too, like boom, 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 and like then it stops for a few seconds. There's it's at it's like on the other side of the door, like at the top of the stairs, but you can't see anything because it's so fucking dark. And then all of a sudden, Micah's body gets thrown at the camera.
Yeah. But it's like...
That was an effective jump scare for me, because I didn't know what was going to... Like, at the time.
Yeah, I remembered that. So when I saw the alternate ending, I'm like, that's not what I remember. And I was a little bit upset at that, because I think that the original ending's more effective. Because, like we said, the whole movie up until now, like, whatever's in that dark hallway on the door side, there isn't ever actually anything visible, really.
Yeah.
So they subverted expectations by at the very end actually having something come at you from the doorway.
Yeah.
Like, so good.
So scary. And then she like...
But she's like sniffing his body.
She's like sniffing his body. I thought she was like going to start like eating him or something.
Yeah, and then she like makes some creepy face and like attacks the camera, and then it cuts black. I actually think it could have been really effective if like he went downstairs and then all that like this, you heard like the scuffle and then the thud, and then that was just the movie.
Yeah, but
because I like the idea of that, like not knowing kind of what happens. I think that is scarier because again, the whole movie is based off of like you basically scaring yourself, like kind of like what's in your head. And I think like I don't know, that ending just felt like so, I don't want to say predictable, but it's like you just knew that eventually she was going to become like whatever possessed. I don't know. It just felt like kind of like the classic like paranormal cop out. Whereas like if you just didn't know what happened, sort of like you just were left to hear stuff and be like, shit.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that would have
if it was loud thud of Micah's body dropping, and then a little bit of silence, and then just like a slow rising low rumble, and then hard cut to credits. Yeah,
and then hard cut to like a John Cena highlight tape.
You can't see me, just like the demon in Paranormal Activity.
Let's do that.
I like the ending as is. I do get what you're saying, like less is more sometimes, especially when it comes to like scary movies. But in this particular sense, because like you said, we don't really get a lot of jump scares in this movie. I think the only other jump scare I can really think of is when she randomly just like gets up out of bed and starts and like screams after a nightmare. Like that was pretty jarring. But we didn't really get like that big jump scare. And I think just like the ending, again, the long drawn out walk up the stairs builds tension. And then all of a sudden this just comes at you. Like I remember seeing that in the theaters and people were fucking freaking out that scene. Like they were screaming when that happened. I think that I just think that's a great note to end the movie on too. Like a really effective final scare.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. It, like something, I guess, had to happen, but it sort of felt like this is what they were doing the whole movie, and then they're just like, here's a bunch of shit. And like, I kind of, that's like sort of what I didn't like. Or like, even if she like thumbed up the stairs and then like the door just slammed or something.
Or
like,
that.
And then it just cuts to like, just something that like, you know, she's still there.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he's clearly not.
The door slamming would have been effective too, because that also would have been like kind of a jump scare.
Yeah. And I don't know where, like, how did he die? That's the other thing I want to know, right? Like, because I think when you see his body, he's got like a wound to his chest.
Well, Derek,
but like,
Derek in the version Derek saw, she's holding a knife, so I'm assuming he got stabbed. But who knows? I mean, I guess it's kind of up to your imagination at that point. Like, obviously something happened and he got
something happened to make the blood go out of him.
Yeah, and thud on the ground. Yeah, I like the ending specifically, but
so were there things in this movie that you guys didn't like anything big that we didn't hit on?
Big? I don't know if this is big, but I would just say like I'll be honest, like the whole time that she's just like bitching and complaining about the camera being on her, like that started to get like kind of annoying. She's like put the camera down, stop filming, like that crap. Like,
yeah, and
like, can we just get past that?
Yeah, and Micah was the annoying trope of like significant other that doesn't believe like things are happening and like isn't taking it seriously.
Yeah, like literally like invalidating her like feelings, like literally a shit husband.
I know.
Or whatever, fiance, boyfriend, I don't know.
Most annoying trope in anything ever. And it's in everything paranormal, basically.
Yeah.
Like you'll just see the husband that doesn't want to move, even though the wife is like, I keep seeing him in the basement or whatever. Like, it's, but I think the fact that, Ryan, you said that this was like, they had guidelines and it was improvised.
Yeah.
Like, it now makes more sense.
Yeah.
Because like, one of the notes that I took was like, Micah's acting is not good. And Katie's acting, trying to respond to his acting, also not good.
Yeah, but I guess that's part of the charm, right? Is it, again, it adds to the realism. Like, it's not so played up and well acted and like, you know, well scripted, blah, blah, blah. It's a little bit more like realistic. I mean, I guess that's kind of like a way you could sort of, you know, get away with that. I think the other thing too, in terms of the acting, is like the whole psychic thing was annoying. Like, it was like there and then it like wasn't. He's like, he was like suddenly too busy to handle the shit. Like, I don't know. It was a whole, like, it felt like they were using that as like sort of explaining what's happening. And then also giving like this is a potential solution, right? Is this demonologist we can reach out to? And then the guy's like, oh yeah, he's just out of town.
Yeah, he left the country for
like
whatever reason.
I don't know. Like, I understood what that was trying to do, but it was just kind of like felt like it was like thrown in the movie and then taken out of the movie. And he shows up to the house and he's like, I gotta get out of here.
So
bye.
That was my favorite part.
That was a funny part. This movie has this movie's actually pretty funny too. At least especially like in the first half. But yeah, when he comes over, when you saw him the first time, he's like, I don't do demons. That's not my field. It's not my forte. I'm not doing that shit. And he comes over, and as soon as he comes into the house, he's like, I cannot help you guys. This thing is pissed off. I don't know if you guys did. Micah, did you get that fucking Ouija board? I told you to get that fucking Ouija board, Micah. Did you do the Ouija board? He did the Ouija board.
Honestly, like,
fucking Micah, man.
For a second, I felt like I was watching The Office during that part. Like, I just felt like Michael Scott was like the psychic guy.
You have a talking head of like Katie, like, we're fucked. He can't help us. I mean, that part that part was also, I thought, pretty effective too, because it's like he's the last lifeline for these people. Like,
I know, but it's so random. Like, he sits down with them and he's like, blah 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 blah. Call this guy, and then he leaves. And then they like call that guy, and like he's out of the country. Oh wow! And then they bring that guy back. He's like, as soon as he steps in, he's like, this is bad. I got to get out of here. Bye.
Yeah, because they didn't listen to him, and they made it upset. Micah bought the Ouija board.
That's a good point too. Yeah. He was just an asshole. The more you think about it, like, the
whole time.
Not only was he like, I don't listen to like how you feel, and I don't believe in this stuff, but it was also like, I'm macho man. I'm gonna solve this. He kept saying, I'm gonna solve this. I'm like, bro, this ain't Scooby Doo. Get that fuck out.
Yeah, Micah. I thought, and like I thought he was like believable in the sense of like, okay, like he is kind of skeptical about all this. Katie also never mentioned any of this to him until this started happening. Like, yeah, they've been dating for what, 3 years? He said something like that, 3 or 5 years. She never mentioned it once, which, understandably so, but also like might be something you want to mention at some point until it's too late, before it's too late. Yeah, go ahead, Derek. You look, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say I'm surprised it didn't come out earlier, but then they had the whole they explained it away with the backstory of like, oh, it started when I was 8, and then it went away for a few years, and now it's back. And he's like, babe, I just looked at the internet. The same thing happened to this girl who had the same letters as the Ouija board.
And it was like this...
Nothing. Now, dead.
Yeah.
It was like this stupid-looking blog with like, you know what I mean? Like word art and like some like scary little background. And it was like, oh my God, yeah. Yeah.
They probably paid some kid to make it in like a day.
The other thing that got me too, and this was such a small detail, but I was like, there was one point where she's like freaking out, and then she's like, I just need to study. and I'm like,
I need 5 minutes.
You could study literally anywhere but in this fucking house.
Dude, I don't know how you even like function daily in this situation. Like,
towards the end, she doesn't.
Yeah, that's what they were sort of like playing up, is like, like the sleep deprivation and whatnot. But yeah, I just think there's some interesting choices in the movie.
I do like how the movie depicts like them slowly going insane based on all, like, they're not sleeping, like this thing is getting worse and worse. Like, yeah, I mean, it kind of put me in their shoes a little bit. I'm like, this just sounds like the worst situation ever. Like, you wake up, you just dread nighttime. Like, you can't stop it from coming. Like, nighttime is going to come, and then you're going to be in the situation again. Like, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
It's just, why even like go about your day to day? Like, unless this can get resolved.
It's a hopeless feeling. I think that's what they wanted. And, there was even one scene where they're like eating dinner, and I'm just thinking like, oh shit, it's dinner time. So like, nighttime's coming, like what you just said.
Yeah. And there's a scene where she's like, I want to watch a movie. I don't want to go to bed yet. Like, I felt that. Like, I would be like, let's watch the Lord of the Rings Blu-ray extended edition trip. Like, just watch all 3 movies. Let's just do that. Let's not go to sleep tonight.
Do you think the demon likes, does the demon like Star Trek?
The demon's just like, you can see like the couch, like there's just the couch, like someone's sitting in the couch, you just can't see him. But just like
an imprint.
There's an imprint of a butt there.
Yeah, it's like maybe
like
it's like 3 butt cheeks.
Yeah, it's huge. There's like a tail on the back of the couch. You hear clapping.
Whoa!
What?
Whoa.
No, clapping because of the movie. He likes the movie.
Actually, speaking of clapping,
the movie ain't over.
It definitely was activated by sex a little bit, though, right? Like there's
Maybe.
for sure undertones of that.
They do have sex that in the early part of the movie.
Because I took a couple notes on that. Like in the beginning, he's like filming her feet, and he's like, "Oh yeah, now let's fuck later." And I'm like,
"Oh yeah."
All right, not a huge fan of Micah right now.
Yeah.
And then like later, the night that I think they actually do it, I think the next day is when the picture frame is shattered on him.
I think that happens later in the movie.
The burn photo is on top of their bed after they've also done it. I'm like, all right,
it's above the bed.
This thing wants her in more ways than one.
I'm going to be honest. Yeah. I was thrown off by the attic because if I'm envisioning this attic properly, where he found the photo would not have been over their bed.
Yeah, it would have been like over their bathroom.
Did you count the rotations?
Hallway.
Yeah, that's like sort of like, I mean, that's stupid, but it's just like, maybe I got disoriented by the shaky cam.
No, now that I'm thinking back on it, I think you might be right because the attic is here and then the room is to the right and he finds the picture to the left, right?
Exactly, which seems like it would be further towards the front of the house.
Yeah. Huh.
Stupid Oren.
Nitpick.
Yeah, in my brain, again, I haven't seen this in I guess a week, but I think in my mind, it's above where she was standing and staring at him.
Okay.
That's where I
didn't clock that, but I mean, it makes sense, and I guess it doesn't really matter. But
yeah, fucking who knows? It's a picture in some pink insulation somewhere.
Yeah, I don't have anything glaring though. Like you were asking about major things. There's nothing major that I disliked. I think the acting, obviously wasn't good, but it sort of fit what they were going for.
Yeah. I think I just disliked the way this movie made me feel. Terrified. It's a very effective movie, and they did so much with so little. Something just as simple as opening and closing the doors, terrifying. Like such a simple trick, and yet that's just so effective.
Yeah, because I have doors.
You have doors. Yes, you have doors.
I have baby powder. That's scary.
You have baby powder. You do have baby powder.
I have pictures on the wall. That's scary.
Pictures on the wall? Yeah.
That's so scary. I have stairs. That's scary.
At least you don't have an attic.
Wait. Oh, no.
Shit.
Yeah, but...
They didn't go anywhere with that, though. With the attic thing, though, it's like...
Nah.
It was like, oh, it's in the attic. And then, like, it never, ever has anything to do with the rest of the movie after that.
Yeah, that was the only other alternate ending I could dream up was she like walked up the stairs with the knife and like looked into the bedroom,
the attic room,
but then like turns around and keeps going into the attic room and then like just stops and looks in and then steps in and then cut to credits.
Yeah. And then like you just see her
everything
fall
I have
the
is
ceiling.
Cut to credits. No, like, fall through.
Falls through the ceiling onto the bed.
Scary movie.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here, but I wanted to ask you guys really quick. Would you have handled this situation any differently than they did in the movie?
100%. I'd get the fuck out.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking, like, I'm going to leave the house, even though it's apparently not going to help. Like, it can't get any worse, right? Like, if I'm just like, I'll be homeless. Like, I'll sit under a bridge or something. Like, just is this thing gonna follow me into that? Like, am I just gonna, basically like what my friend did? He went outside.
The other thing is I always hate when there's like the macho, like, I'm gonna taunt this thing. Come on, where are you? Like, gets the Ouija board. Like, that crap's dumb. Like, hell no. Seen enough of those movies. Maybe I'm leaving the house. Well, definitely leaving the house, but I'm not. The last thing I'm doing is getting some 30-pound camera and like trying to instigate this thing.
Yeah, fuck no. Yeah, she's like, don't talk to it, please, don't talk to it. And like it cuts to him with like a audio recorder, like, are you there?
Are you there? Hello?
What do you want? He opens it in Audacity. I'm like, okay.
And I still can't believe, like, he got the
This
Ouija
guy's
board.
solving it.
Like, the psychic literally said, don't do the Ouija board. Don't communicate with it. And then he still bought the fucking Ouija board.
And, like, do we know how she did on that test? Like, I don't know. Did she ever take the test?
Yeah, that's another open loop, never closed.
Yeah.
I would have just, like, I don't know. That guy's a fucking idiot. He got what was coming to him, and I just think, even if you're right, even if it was attached to her, I'm still getting the fuck out. And then, like, you have enough proof to know that something's going on, so that's all you needed the camera for. You're out. Like, why are you trying? Especially, it's escalating and escalating, and they're just like, "Oh my god, we can't go anywhere." Like, dude, sit in the middle of the street. That's got to be better than being in that damn house. Being in Oren's house.
Oren's house. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Do we want to do a scariest scene really quick? What did we think was the scariest scene? Derek, do you have a scene that you thought was the scariest in the movie?
No, come back to me.
Okay. I said earlier that the ending was the scariest scene, and I do agree with that, but just to add a second one, the scene where they're looking at the picture and then she's like standing there and she's like, I can feel it behind me. And then you see her hair move.
Damn it.
I don't think I caught that.
Damn it, that was going to be mine.
You didn't catch that?
Damn it, that was going to be mine.
You can agree. That can be yours too.
She says, I feel it breathing on me. And her hair's like moving.
Oh,
so fucking
hate it. And her back is to the attic at that point, and he's just like filming her. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
I would say for me, it's when I think when he was going up the attic, I thought like, what the hell are we gonna see? That part, but also just like the finding the picture up there, just like the general sense that it like something was lurking in the attic this whole time. That was one that kind of freaked me out. I didn't think the jump scare at the end, like it was a jump scare, but I didn't think it was like spectacular. It was kind of weird. It felt like a little bit more like a John Wick movie where there's just this guy flying across the room on a harness.
Yeah.
What about you? The end where she's like got the bite mark on her side.
Oh, yeah.
Like she's like clutching the cross, and he burns the cross and the kid's photo, right? And then like you think that they're done with it, like they're just gonna get out, and then like you can tell that it's possessing her to want to stay in the house and argue with Micah. And I think even the subtitle says like two voices, like, I think we'll be okay now.
Yeah, you can kind of hear it too in the background.
And then she smiles.
Yeah, she smiles. Yeah.
Because it's getting what it wants. It's getting them to not go away from where it can like do shit to them.
Yeah, because they wanted her, and then they wanted him out, which is essentially what happened. Yeah, that guy's an ass.
I do wonder if the Thing's motivation changed over the course of the movie, like seeing Micah's behavior. Like it wanted Katie. I'm not sure if it wanted to kill her. I think it might have wanted to kill her at one point, but maybe it had to. Then it changed course. We hate Micah, or I hate Micah. He's an asshole, so I'm going to possess Katie to use her as a vessel to kill Micah.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But interesting to think about how the demon's thinking throughout the movie.
Yeah.
Dude, that was so funny when you said the cops came in and shot her because she was
doing demon shit. She was doing demon shit. She was crawling around on the ceiling and shit.
Stop doing demon shit. Bang, bang.
You want to do an overall rating for this one? How do we feel about it?
Sure.
Because I think for me on the scary movie scale, it's probably a 7. I think on a movie scale, we'll bump it down to a 6. And I think on the fear scale, again, I think that's also a 6.
Yeah, I would go probably like scary movies comparisons. Probably, I would say 6. On a just comparing it to all movies in general, probably like a 4 or 5. And then on this, I think I said the scare at the beginning, probably like a 6 too. It did a lot of things effectively. Not one thing in particular was like, overdone or kind of over the top. So I actually felt like there was some balance there, and it felt pretty consistent. Like the vision of the movie stayed true throughout the whole film, in my opinion. You could see some movies that kind of like something changed and like this shit went south or something. It felt pretty consistent. So yeah. I'd give it a 5 on the grand movie scale.
Okay. Yeah, I would give, and I'm just for the genre, and it's a scary movie, but also like found footage. Like found footage wise, it's one of the best found footage movies of all time. So I'd have to go like in that regard, like it's like an 8 out of 10. In regards to like scary movie, like I said, this movie really affected me more so than most movies. So I got to go again, probably like 8 out of 10 in regards to the scary movie and its effects on my psyche and just me in general. Very effective. So I got to give it its props there. Yeah.
Cool. So is that it?
That's all I got. And who knows how much I'm going to sleep tonight.
Well, there it is. Paranormal Activity 2009. And if you want to see some paranormal activity in our comment section, you can see that on Instagram. We are at 5 o'clock sweats. We are also on X at 5 o'clock sweats. We're on YouTube, also 5 o'clock sweats, and Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get podcasts. Did I forget anything, boys?
Nope.
Mm-mm.
Well, there we are. And as always, stay sweaty.
Stay sweaty.
I do feel like I rushed at that time a little bit. No, I feel like I did a little bit. I feel like I've been holding back too much before. Oh God, he's getting paranormal activity.
He's getting activity.
Oh, dude, I can see ass cheek prints on the pillow. You think it's sitting there?
Whoa, is that sweat?
Oh my God.